It is Monday night, and not as crazy of a college football Saturday as the first Saturday or the week 2 Saturday. That second week was like 2007, but still there were some crazy games in there, and the biggest thing that I'm getting out of all this so far is the Pac-12 has come to play this year. Pac-12 has come to play. Maybe, and I'm not saying for sure, not for sure, but from what I've seen, just maybe the Pac-12 could make a run towards the playoffs this year. I don't know. USC looks really good. I know. Who have they played? They haven't played anybody. I get it, but they've still looked good. I mean, they can't help that their schedule has been crappy so far. Washington, surprising a lot of people, but not me. I expected Washington to take a big step forward. One of the biggest reasons was transfer Michael Penix Jr. from Indiana. That dude is kind of like what JT Daniels has been for West Virginia. Man, if West Virginia could have a defense, they would be a really good team. First 3 years of Neil Brown, defense amazing. We need a quarterback. Where's our offense? Finally, we get an offense and JT freaking Daniels, and our defense goes away. I can't, this is the life of a West Virginia fan. This is the crap that we put up with, not just this year, but pretty much every year. By the way, if you're a regular of Golden Blue Dude and you're like, what's going on? Something looks different. Well, I'm having to rearrange my background and my studio in general because the reason is going to make you laugh. The reason is because you guys are sending me so much stuff. I ran out of room to display the helmets. So I had to switch my desk around. So you're seeing the desk that I usually use that you don't see. But now it has to be in the background because y'all sent so many helmets. So that's a good problem. And my dad is supposed to come by either next week or the beginning of the week after that. And we will start construction on the shelving that's going to go down at Golden Blue Dude. And so this is the back wall that you're looking at. We're going to do 3 shelves probably to that height right there. They're going to be on the wall, but then they're going to come out from the wall to give it some depth, and that's where the helmets are going to be displayed. And it's almost like a 180-degree angle of seeing the mini helmets. So that is in the works. But for now, I had to use the desk that is usually faced in the other direction because y'all been sending like 2-3 helmets a day, and that's a good problem. I'm not telling you to stop, not at all. Keep them coming. It would be real. You know what? That would be really, really cool if I had like most of the helmets by the time it's time to put up the shelving. That would be amazing. As usual, don't forget to hit the like button. It helps the video hit the YouTube algorithm, gets it suggested more people see it, more people click on it, and so you're actually helping yourself when you hit the like button. It doesn't matter if you like me or this video. If you like talking smack, that's the best way to help yourself. Hit the like button, and it'll get more people in here. Now, if you have a question or a comment or you want to make fun of me, hey, I have thick skin. Y'all remember the checklist? Which I need to get that back on my videos. I haven't done the checklist in a while. I'm going to have to do that. But anyways, I have thick skin, so I'm not worried about it. We appreciate you so much for your donations that if it's a troll and you want to make fun of me, we'll still put it on the screen. Sergeant Pickles 13, thank you for the $1.99 donation. Says for, I'm guessing Pacific Northwest schools. That's what makes sense to me. 11-1 wins over Wisconsin, Michigan State, and BYU. You know what? I didn't sit down and look at the actual wins, but when you look at the teams that they've beaten, Pac-12 is looking impressive. And the biggest black eye that the Pac-12 has right now as far as this year is Utah losing to Florida. That did hurt the Pac-12 because Utah was supposed to be the best team in the Pac-12, and they come out and lose immediately to Florida. I picked Florida to win that game, not because I thought Florida was the better team, but it's the first game of the year. That's several time zones over. That does affect, even though they're flying and they're not driving, 17, 20 hours, it still affects. You're in a hostile road environment. It was packed out. It was a tough environment. That was a tough way to open your season. So I was predicting the upset. Unfortunately, that hurts the Pac-12. But beyond that, I mean, that's it. Think about that, guys. That is the only black eye that the Pac-12 has right now. Washington just beat number 11 Michigan State, and I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket on Washington's party. You guys are good. But I did think, and y'all heard me talk about it in the offseason, I did think that Michigan State was a bit overrated, and I fully expected Washington to beat Michigan State and cover the spread. That didn't surprise me. Still a good win. Don't get me wrong. That's still a good win. Wisconsin, that was a road win for Washington State. That's worth bragging about. That is worth bragging about. Washington was the projected winner of the Big Ten West. Washington State goes on the road and beats them. Why? Somebody explain to me, why in the world is Washington State not ranked? They're undefeated. They have a road win against a ranked Big Ten team. There is absolutely no reason why Washington State shouldn't be ranked. In the meantime, Texas A&M, yes, they beat a top 15 team in Miami, but they also lost to Appalachian State. So Texas A&M is ranked, but Washington State isn't. Yes, it is the respect factor, but they should stop. You got to start looking at the actual wins and leave out your personal feelings and what's happened the past 4 years. The past 4, 5, 6 years has nothing to do with this year. You judge this year based on what you've seen this year. Oh, man, the Pac-12, they haven't made the playoffs in 5, 6 years. Doesn't matter that Washington State went on the road and beat Wisconsin. They're in the Pac-12. We'll punish them. That's stupid. That is so stupid, and I hate that. So I don't agree with that whatsoever. I think, I'm being real. I think that the Pac-12 does have a decent shot at getting to the playoffs. Not because I'm super high on USC, but there's so many good teams in the Pac-12 this year that just by percentage-wise, that should lift them up as far as chances to make it. It's basic math if you think about it. So, yeah, I think the Pac-12 has a chance. It doesn't mean that they are going to make the playoffs. It just means they have a better chance of making the playoffs, more than usual. Give me 1 second, guys, just in case anybody wants to join the stream. I forgot to put in the stream code, of course, per usual. But this time, I waited till I was, 10 minutes? Almost 10 minutes into the stream before I remembered to put it in there. So this is a new one right here as far as forgetting to put in the StreamYard. Let's see here. Let me make sure I get all the keystrokes correct. Okay. Oh, no, that was wrong. There we go. I think we got it. Let me go to this super chat. Thank you, Shane M. 1980 for the $5 donation. Not sure if you have room, but I may send you the alternate white LSU helmet. Yeah, I have room. And earlier, I don't know if you're here earlier, but my dad is actually going to come over, and we're going to build a shelving unit to display the mini helmets. So keep them coming, man. It's going to be 3 shelves. The back part of it is going to be against the back wall, but then the sides are going to curve out. So we're going to be able to display the mini helmets in sort of a 180 panoramic type of deal. So it'll also give the show some depth. I'm excited. Whenever I showed the plans to my dad, I was nervous. I was like, man, I hope he can do this. I know this looks a little bit elaborate. So whenever I showed him, he was like, oh, yeah, that's no problem. I was like, yes. So not only can he do it, but he says it's going to be easy. So that means it could get done really fast. So I look forward to that as well. So, yes, by all means, send it. I know I have some other people that are sending helmets. The cool thing is some people tell me what they're sending, but some people don't. So it's like I get more than what I'm expecting. I'm serious. The past 3 days, I've gotten 2 or 3 helmets every single time. So whenever you go to the post office, I've almost got the biggest PO box. Not quite, but it's fairly big. But the mini helmets don't fit in that. So pretty much whenever I've been going there, forgot to put the StreamYard link in there. Pretty much every time I've gotten that locker key, and now that I know what the locker key means, basically a mini helmet because it can't fit in that, like my eyes light up. I'm like, man, a key again. Let's see what mini helmet we have today. And it's not what mini helmet, it's what mini helmets. Multiple people have been sending me multiple mini helmets. That's always a good day. Anybody want to join this StreamYard? I put it in the comments section, and if somebody tries to get on and it's not working, just let me know. Just make sure that whenever you come on, I understand if people don't want to come on camera, but just make sure you show me your face before I put you on. Make sure you're not a perv or a robot or anything like that. There's some weird people out there, guys. There is some weird people. So I do have the StreamYard link in. I saw Tim in here. I'd like for him to come on because I've been talking about the Pac-12 a lot today, and he's a USC fan. I wanted to see how excited an actual Pac-12 fan is. I know I'm excited. I'm not a Pac-12 fan, but I'm excited because I think college football needs the Pac-12. I think that's a necessity. The West Coast needs to be involved in the playoff system and national championships. I remember whenever USC was ruling the roost, and, they did become like the evil empire, but at the same time, it was awesome. Oh, can Texas knock them off? Oh, can this team knock them off? It was really cool like that. And I know Alabama is now the evil empire, which I'm okay with, but we need some West Coast representation. I don't care if it's USC, Oregon, Utah, Washington, Oregon State, Washington State, even UCLA. They're still technically undefeated. I don't care who it is. Get a Pac-12 team in there. And it's not the playoff committee's fault. Pac-12 just beats up on one another because none of them are good enough to run the Pac-12 gauntlet. So it's on them. It's on them. And they have to, whenever you think about the playoffs and these power conferences, it's usually one team dominating the conference. Whenever the Big 12 was making the playoffs, it was Oklahoma. With the Big 10, for the most part, it's Ohio State. Now, for the first time, a different team last year, Michigan. And for the SEC, once again, for the most part, Alabama. Last year, for the first time, for the second time, Georgia, LSU. Who else? Anybody else make the playoffs? And I'm not I think Auburn made it too, didn't they? Way back in the day, Auburn. I could be wrong about that, but the SEC has multiple representation, but Alabama is like, the evil empire type of thing. I'm going to put you on, Klein. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. Just got home from work.
Nice.
Took a break from watching the Buffalo game.
I got you. So, on a side note, it reminded me because I saw you on here and your video kind of popped out whenever I did the We Are Golden Bluetooth thing. So I'm thinking, whenever I did that, I think we had around 2,000 or 3,000. Now we have over 10,000. So I think I want to do another We Are Golden Bluetooth video and have people send little video clips. I think the last one turned out pretty good. What do you think?
I loved it. I thought it was awesome as hell. I was excited being on a YouTube video and it's out there. I thought that was awesome as hell.
Yeah, I had fun. That was a lot of fun. Now, unfortunately, there were a few people that turned in videos where the audio was scratchy or the camera wouldn't it wasn't compatible for me downloading. So I did have to leave some people out that sent in videos, but I explained to them why. But I think, now that we're over 10,000, I think we're going to have a lot of entries this go around, and it can be even better. What do you think?
I agree, but I also think, if it's going to be that much more, you might have to do a part 2 or 3 of that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how many entries. That's a good point right there. So I was about to talk about a team that is totally blowing everybody's mind. And I actually got the helmet yesterday.
Kansas. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised about that too, but I'm happy for them. I mean, they haven't been shit since 2007.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, now that Kansas is 3-0, and I'm I'm not trying to talk down on Kansas fans because they have endured a lot. But
Yes.
now that they're 3-0, they've kind of come out of the woodworks and they're like, we've decided. Apparently, Kansas has taken a vote. We've decided that we want to be good in football, or we want to, put some effort into football. We're kind of getting bored in dominating the Big 12 in basketball, so we're trying to expand our brand and be good in football as well. Quality trash talk. I will give them that. It is quality trash talk. But two things. Number one, how long is that going to last this year? Okay. Number
Who do you got
two,
next?
if they have a great season this year, how long can they keep Lance Leopold, their head coach?
Well, I mean, this is probably all new to them. I mean, they haven't been 3-0 or
Yeah, it's
like
just
maybe.
week 3, but they're 3-0. I mean, Kansas had 2 wins last year. Well, actually, it's now week 4. So, yes, it's early in the season, and that's why I asked the question, how much longer do you think this continues this year? And if they do have a really successful year, like a 8-5, 9-3, or better, how long can they keep their head coach Lance Leopold? I think it's a
I
catch.
say
Go ahead.
maybe this year or next year. Maybe he doesn't get something turned around,
Yeah. And K-Do, thank you for the $5 donation. This is the point that I've been making. Everybody's like, it's only 3 games. It's only week 4. I get that, but I agree with K-Do here. He says Leopold has a better road win record than the previous 4 coaches. Exactly. It's not that Kansas is 3-0 and they've played, Temple, Kent State, and then a scrub FCS. Yes, Tennessee Tech was the FCS the first game, but they went on the road and beat a JT West Virginia, a JT Daniels West Virginia. And to follow that up, they stayed on the road and not only beat Houston, they blew them out. Blew them out. Those are 2 quality wins. I'm not saying they're elite and, those are comparable to wins over Oklahoma or Oklahoma State or Baylor. No, but those are some mid-tier teams, and they might be low-tier teams if Kansas is that good, because we're used to Kansas being the low-tier team. Well, if they're beating the mid-tier teams, that means they're not going to be the low-tier teams, and the low-tier teams are going to be and the mid-tier teams are going to get bumped down to the low-tier teams. So Kansas is definitely shaking up the Big 12 in football this year, and there was a few people, a couple actually, not very many. There's a few people that said, hey, you need to watch out for Kansas. They're going to pull some upsets. One of them could be West Virginia. Well, they've already pulled off 2 upsets, West Virginia and Houston. In the future, we might see Kansas favored against well, you know what? I bet you they're favored against Duke, their next game. And I think they win that game. They'll probably be favored against Iowa State. That's a home game. They might even be favored against TCU. That's also going to be a home game. Kansas favored 3 games in a row.
TCU.
That's insane.
When was the last time they even made it to a bowl game?
Oh, my gosh. I have no. Honestly, I mean, it hasn't been like that long ago because I talked about that the other day and somebody pointed it out. Hold on one second. Hold on. I'm actually going to look that up. I'm sure the Kansas guy is going to beat me to it because he probably already knows it. Last time Kansas made a bowl game. Let's see here. It was really 2008? I thought they made a bowl after that. Wow, it has been a while. I mean, we all remember 2007, and we all remember the Orange Bowl in 2008. I thought that they made a bowl since then. Guess I was wrong. Jeff, you might want to wipe your camera down. I think you got a little fog going on. So Sergeant Pickles, one of my Pac-12 subscribers, were you? I was expecting Washington to beat Michigan State.
I'm
not asking you, were you hoping that they were going to? Were you actually like 100% expecting Washington to beat Michigan State?
I thought going into the game they would win it close, but that Michigan State would be in it to the end. We've actually had fairly solid defenses even post Chris Peterson, and I know for a fact that it was all up to Michael Penix because Michigan State's had secondary issues for the last few seasons, and that's the one thing UW's been lacking is that quarterback to really make the engine go. They've had a really good defense. Just look at the NFL draft the past couple years. They've had top, first and second round picks even in bad seasons. So I thought they were going to win it close, but I had no idea that it was going to be like that because the final score doesn't do it justice. It was 39-14 early in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they started putting in the backups whenever it was a blowout. You're right. It was not as close as the final score. Has Michael Penix lived up to your expectations or surpassed your expectations?
We didn't really know what we were getting because in the Big Ten, you go through the meat grinder, especially at a school like Indiana, and you can see a lot of decent performances. And, it was the kind of thing, he had a lot of injuries, but he would look really good in certain games against kind of their, equal competition. But then against Ohio State and Michigan, they would get destroyed. But how do you even that out? Because their whole team around him isn't very good anyways.
I was about to say, Washington has more talent all around, so he has more talent to work with.
Yeah, I think the receiving core for Washington has really surprised me. We've had a few good transfers, and they've quietly recruited some very good classes of athletes the past couple seasons.
What's the one concern that you have for Washington? Biggest, I guess.
I think, obviously the Pac-12 just, like you were saying earlier, they tend to just beat each other up. Like Stanford, even though people are saying they're bad, they've been that weird bogey team certain seasons for Washington.
Yeah, last year they beat Oregon and Utah, the two teams that played in the championship.
Yeah, for me, it's just can we keep up the performances like we in the trenches like we did against Michigan State? We really controlled the offensive, defensive lines, and that was actually our downfall the season before. Is that the offensive line just completely fell apart? Guys were getting bull rushed, and quarterback had no chance. If you can solidify those lines, keep the O-line churning like it is, because they've actually got a pretty good balance for all the throwing highlights. There was a lot of good running plays going on to complement that as well.
I gotcha. So what game scares you the most?
Oh, it's always Oregon. It's got to be
Oregon. And this year, that one's on the road. Yeah, I have that as a probable loss. But if Michael Penix can take advantage of the Oregon secondary, which it's okay, but it's not like, oh, man, that Oregon secondary, it's going to be tough. No, it's not like that. It's okay, and I think he's good enough to keep him guessing. That's the one thing with Michael Penix. Even after surgery and all those operations, he's still very mobile. And if you watch him, it's like he was injured because he plays without fear. A lot of quarterbacks, whenever they get injured like that and have to undergo surgery, once they do get back on the field, they're like scared out there. They don't want to, end up having to go through that again. with him, it's like, I'm good. It never happened. Let's go.
I definitely think being in a system he's familiar with, because he's played under DeBoer before, and that's part of the reason he came to Washington. System he's familiar with, he can step right into it, feel comfortable, and now he knows he has the athletes to be on the receiving end of those really good passes. The reason Oregon scares me, and they always have outstanding athletes, they recruit a lot of the kids that Washington used to get and dominate with. And the thing that kind of makes me think that it's actually pretty evenly matched across the board, and maybe being on the road makes the difference, like you said, is that do you get the good Bo Nix or the bad Bo Nix? Because he is very Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes, I agree. And unfortunately, in the home game, he looked really, really good, and y'all get them at Oregon. So that's the one, I don't know, thing you got to worry about. He seems to be Jekyll at home, the good Bo Nix. But that defense has not impressed me. I know they looked okay against BYU, but BYU doesn't have the greatest offense either. I think Washington has a much better offense than what BYU has. Now, I think BYU has a better defense, just a little bit, not much, just a little bit. So we'll see how that matchup goes. Hopefully, Oregon can't put up 40 points like they did against BYU. So who do you have in the Pac-12 championship now?
I do think USC makes it from the South. Weirdly, though, I think Utah still gets them in the regular season, but USC just has enough of the games. The Pac-12 North, especially with Wazoo and Oregon State, that one is going to be the meat grinder. Yeah. But I'll put it this way. I think the winner of Oregon and Washington makes it, and that game is actually the decider, that it's going to be that close down the stretch.
I agree. I definitely 100% agree. And like I said in the actual video that I made earlier, so you have the really good teams. I think Washington, Oregon, and USC are the best, and then Utah's there as well, even though they suffered a loss against Florida. And then you have the spoilers, Oregon State and Washington State. So that's what makes it tricky. And then there's Stanford. You never know when Stanford's going to pull an upset. They're always good for one or two upsets every year, so you got to watch out for them. Pac-12 just needs one team to be able to withstand a good night from Stanford, an onslaught from Oregon State and Washington State, and then play their A games against all the other competition as well. That's all it takes, Pac-12. That's all it takes.
It sets up very well for Washington because they somehow managed to miss, because you only play 4 of the 6 South teams, even though there's no divisions. That's how they schedule it. Washington misses USC and Utah this year just by chance. So they technically have the easiest path. They have all the opponents that I'm kind of worried about that could be trap games like Stanford, they have at home. So I think Washington is the one where, you take care of business where you're supposed to, and in theory you have the easiest path. I think, is it this week? I think USC is going to Oregon State. That stadium will give him and Tony nightmares about late nights in Corvallis facing the Beavs.
The one plus thing about that, though, is Reser is under construction, and there's only like 26,000 seats there right now.
Yeah. I feel bad for the Beavs because the fans that do show up, they give it everything they got. There's no doubt about that. But it's a small town, and they've been put under Oregon's boot for so long that it's hard to not go against the almighty Nike empire.
Exactly.
And the question is, do they play in the football stadium this week? Because last week they didn't play in the football stadium; they played on the soccer field.
Holy crap! That's even worse.
Wow.
Well, if it's playable, I would think Utah, they would want as many people as possible. Yeah,
you would hope
that makes Oregon State even more impressive. They actually don't have that good of a home field advantage as far as the crowd goes. Wow. So now switching from the good to the bad. I don't understand them. I don't understand them. So Texas A&M the week before, they get beat by mighty Appalachian State. Oh, don't diss Texas A&M. Appalachian State, they're a better team than you realize. Yeah, it took them overtime to beat Troy this week. Okay. They're not bad. I'm not saying they're bad, but they're not like this elite team that, has the same type of talent as Texas A&M.
That's more of an indictment on Texas A&M, though.
Right. So, they lose to Appalachian State at home, and I'm thinking, whoa, before this, I had Miami losing to Texas A&M, but still having a 10-win season. They're going to beat Texas A&M, and then their only real tough game is at Clemson. Nope. They dominate Texas A&M statistically in the game, but they commit just enough mistakes and play just enough poorly to lose that game. Now, I didn't watch it, but I've seen highlights and I've talked to people that have watched it, and apparently it's one of the sloppier games of the season for anybody, not just for these two teams. And Miami was snake bit the entire game. A muffed punt, missed tackles at just inopportune times, stuff like that. Did any of you guys, were y'all able to watch the game?
I watched most
I
of it.
saw a little bit at work.
So what were we seeing?
The U was moving the ball. Then they got down to the red zone, and that line, they lost mainly because of their line. I mean, they wasn't getting a good enough push. The problem is, Texas A&M, and I went and made fun of them at their Yale practice on Friday night, and I love making fun of Texas A&M every chance I get. But you have to think, even during the App State game, that defensive line was still good. It wasn't the defense that hurt Texas A&M. It was the offense. So I think the U looked at the App game and said, we're going to run this over. Well, that offensive line of the U really wasn't running over that defensive line. And A&M kind of did the bend but don't break.
Right.
The U had the ball 4 times in the red zone.
9 points.
Got 3 field goals.
If you tell Miami before the game, hey, all you have to do is score 3 touchdowns and you win, they're like, oh, we got this. We got this. They don't. Nope. No, you don't. Credit to Texas A&M's defense. And like you said, even in the Appalachian State, they held them to 17. It's just their offense couldn't score enough. And then in this game, their offense let them down, only scored 17, but the defense kept their end of the deal. So it looks like that the defense is going to have to carry this team throughout the entire season. And that's not going to work in the SEC. The SEC has evolved into adopting the Big 12's moniker of offense. Not giving away the defense for the offense, but adding offense to the mix. It used to be defense for the SEC. And then the Big 12 was offense. And so the SEC figured, okay, all right, let's not give up the defense, but we need to bring in some offense. So I think Texas A&M is screwed because they don't have the offense. They have the defense, but they don't have the offense.
But Texas A&M
They're
has
getting
2
their
things
asses
going for
kicked
them.
next week.
There's 2 things going for Texas A&M right now, even in the Arkansas game this week. They got the talent to play anybody. Nobody can deny that they have
Not
the
the
talent.
coaching.
They got the players there. And the other thing you have to give it to them, what happens when you put a dog in the corner or an animal in the corner? You know what I mean? So look what A&M did to Alabama last year when they were wounded, they were hurt, they were the worst team in the SEC. And then what did they do? They came out and played, a game of their life. So I would worry about A&M a little bit because, like I said, their coaching is terrible this year, but they do have the players to play against anybody. And like I said, with A&M, they only have to beat you once. You might be, beat them 9 out of 10 times, but if they bring that one game and you're not ready for it, kind of like, Miami, if they play 10 more times or 9 more times, Miami probably beats them all 9. But on the game that counts, they didn't show up.
You're exactly right. Quick reminder to everybody watching, please make sure to hit the like button, even if you don't like me or any of my guests or this video. It just helps this video hit the YouTube algorithm, gets it suggested more and more people see it, more people click on it. and boom, that helps grow the audience. So you're actually helping yourself if you like trash talk, because you'll get the trash talk to more people. So let's help grow the video and hit the like button. And if you have a question for me or any of my guests, you have a comment, you have a troll, you want to make fun of me or somebody else, whatever, keep moms out of it. Come on, let's not go down that road. Put it in the super chat. That's the little dollar sign that you see on the bottom right-hand corner. Anything you put in that super chat will be put on the screen, just like you see with the William Lawson donation. And we will read the question, comment, troll, whatever, and answer it to the best of our ability. So we found out yesterday that the Sun Devils, not surprisingly, got rid of Herm Edwards. We all knew this was coming. I thought he would get through the season and they were going to fire him at the end of the season. Turns out even Arizona State has a limit on their patience. The biggest thing on Herm Edwards was the recruiting violations, specifically in the COVID period. That's when recruiting violations were even more severe because of health reasons. And of course, he violated them. They're under investigation. I don't know if they'll be put on probation or given the death penalty. I seriously doubt that they're going to be given the death penalty, but they are going to be put on probation and scholarship limitations, possibly a bowl ban for a year or two. But who does Arizona State go out to replace Herm Edwards at the head coach? I'm hearing two names. The first name I'm not buying, and that's Matt Campbell. I think Matt Campbell is going to go to Nebraska. I think Nebraska is going to try to get Matt Campbell, and that's where he's going to go. That's where he feels, at home. It's still the Midwest. He knows how to recruit there. He's going to have more resources. He's going to get paid a lot more. I don't even know if Arizona State could be able to pay more than Iowa State. It's probably around the same. But the biggest name that I'm hearing, and this started either Saturday night or yesterday morning, and that's Bronco Mendenhall coming out of retirement. And he made it official. He said, "Yes, I'm looking into coaching. I'm coming out of retirement." Arizona State would actually make sense for Bronco, but it depends on how bad of a situation he's going to be walking into, because nobody wants to walk into a program where half your scholarships are taken away and you're not going to be able to play for a bowl for a couple of years. You don't want that. So they're going to have to figure out what the penalties for these infractions are going to be. But I think he would be a good fit. He coached BYU before he took the Virginia school, so he is used to the Midwest. What do y'all think about Bronco Mendenhall to Arizona State?
I'll let Jeff take this one.
Well, the first thing Arizona State's going to do, if Arizona State's smart, they're going to announce in the next week or two that they're going to self-impose a bowl ban for this year, just kind of like Tennessee did. So that kind of takes out the bowl ban. The one thing about firing Herm Edwards is college football needs to change the rule again. Last year, they changed the rule for recruits. It used to be, the second Wednesday in February of every year was the signing period. Well, they did away with that and did an early one in December. So now coaches have to be fired early because you want your coach in place sometime in November so he can still get recruits. Right. So that's why you're seeing people fired early. So as Arizona State had to fire him, so that'll start the process of getting the new coach. Now, none of the violations that Herm Edwards did was so severe. It wasn't worse than what Tennessee did. They're not going to lose a bunch of scholarships. They're going to have a bowl ban. There might be a small scholarship. So the next coach will be able to come in pretty easy and turn this around. Herm Edwards was not a great recruiter. And especially now with the transfer portal, you could get a coach in there. And even right now, there's some decent players in the transfer portal that haven't been picked up. So it's not like you got to recruit and you're waiting forever. That'll help. I don't know. I think he would be a good fit in Arizona because he did come, he from the Mountain Time Zone. He coached out there. Don't forget
the state part.
He coached out there, so he has recruiting out there experience. I think he'd be good for Arizona State. Arizona State, believe it or not, what was it, 96? If they would have beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, they would have been national champions. I
Yep.
mean, so you're not talking about a completely terrible team. They've had good success in the past, and they've been close to championships 2 different times in the past. So, and I do think Arizona State can pay between $4 and $5 million for a coach. So I think they have just a little bit more money than what Iowa State is willing to put into it.
Right.
But you're not going to get Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell is a Midwest guy. I don't see Matt Campbell leaving the Midwest.
I agree.
Unless it's a blue blood. Like if Lincoln Riley wasn't at USC and USC come calling, or Alabama or something. Other than that, he's going to go to Nebraska, Ohio State, Michigan. He's going to stay somewhere in the Midwest is my take on Matt Campbell.
Yeah, I think he's going to Nebraska. That's my take on that. And talks heating up about teams trying to get Deion Sanders. Is there a team that could entice him out of Jackson State? And I'm going to ask everybody this. Is there a team out there that could entice Jackson State that actually has a chance of getting him? Now, roll out all the teams that have a coach like Alabama. They have Nick Saban, USC, Lincoln Riley. Roll out all those teams. I'm talking about teams that are struggling, might be looking for a coach in the future, need a coach right now. Is there a team out there? Because I'm hearing chatter about Georgia Tech trying to get Deion Sanders. And he likes the Atlanta area. But it's difficult to recruit there. But he's proven he can recruit at Jackson State. He had Jackson State nationally ranked in recruiting class this past year. Is anybody buying Georgia Tech for Deion Sanders?
Hell no.
Do you see any team that could entice Deion away from Jackson State?
I think the only way it happens is someone's got to roll out the red carpet and basically give him full autonomy. I don't think Georgia Tech's in a position with the state of their program. It doesn't feel like it's really a priority to them, to fix it, let alone make a splash hiring like that.
I'm going to throw out a name out there that might shock y'all because he hasn't even been put on the hot seat yet. But I think he could in the future, especially once this team gets to the Big 12. I don't think Dana Holgorsen is going to last at Houston. I don't think Dana Holgorsen is going to last at Houston, okay? I don't. I'm already hearing it from Houston fans that they see the writing on the wall. They're grateful for the 12-2 last year, but it was against a bunch of cupcake games. The legitimate competition that he did play, he got plastered. And then fast forward to this year, they've already lost to Texas Tech and Kansas. Houston fans are not fearing coming to the Big 12, but they just know that Dana Holgorsen doesn't have a good track record against the Big 12. So I know we're assuming 2 steps ahead, but let's assume that Houston comes into the Big 12 and immediately Dana does start tanking. And
Holy shit.
This isn't working. What about Deion Sanders to Houston in 3 years?
No, he won't go to Houston. The problem with Deion Sanders is Deion Sanders, and I know the Southeast, but that's where he wants. He wants to stay close to Florida, Georgia. If he's going to go to Texas, it's going to be Texas. It's going to be close to Dallas. But
That's something to think about.
He would take the Georgia Tech job over Houston. And you got to think about this too. Everybody's down on the Pac-12 right now on TV contract because they said, ESPN. But ESPN also told the Big 12, you guys aren't getting what you think you want either. So, both of these conferences are going to get a number. And right. I think both of the conferences are going to be a little shocked with the number. Now, I know it's a huge jump up for Houston, no matter what the number is from where they are now. But how much money are they really going to have for a coach? I don't see Deion leaving where he is unless it's somewhere that will really make him happy.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I agree, actually. I guess the reason I brought Houston up is, number one, I really don't think Daniel's going to last there. And number two, I think Houston would give Deion Sanders, a lot of leeway. Basically, let him run it the way he wants to. But it's not in the region that Deion wants to be in. That's the big knock for Houston. So I agree with you. I could see, I don't know, what if a Florida opened up or a Florida State? That's probably where he would go. I think especially Florida State.
Yeah.
Honestly, here's a hot take. I think even if Knowles does good this year and keeps his job for a couple more years, I think eventually that Deion Sanders is going to be the head football coach of Florida State. I truly believe that in my gut. I think sometime in the future that we will see Deion Sanders the head football coach at Florida State. It makes too much sense. It's in the region that he wants. He'd be making way more money. Florida State would give him full reign. His recruiting would go through the roof. And, of course, he went to Florida State. It's going to happen.
Okay, can I ask you a question? I did a video today on this subject. Now, what happened in the last 40 years? Because when I was a kid in the 70s, I remember, and in the 80s, when a university would hire a coach, that coach had 4 to 5 years to build the program. Now I'm not talking about Alabama, Ohio, the Blue Bloods.
Right.
You had a little bit less leash, but every other team, when a coach was hired, he was given at least 4 years to succeed, if not 5. And now you're looking at all these coaches you're naming. Let's go with Brian down in Auburn. This is his second year.
Train wreck.
The Georgia Tech coach. This is only his third year. But you start looking at these coaches, and we're talking on the hot seat.
Yep.
They're not given any time. I mean, even some people are calling for Freeman in Notre Dame to be fired because in 4 games he's 1-3. Well, he hasn't even got a full recruiting class yet. So I mean,
yeah.
Do you think that it's fair to coaches to be, on the hot seat after 1 year, or just 3 weeks into year 2?
Depends on the school.
Yes, but only because they know it going in. Like if it was some surprise, like, oh, you didn't tell me I only had 3 years. Wait a minute. I think now coaches understand, especially where they go, how much time, they're going to have and what the expectations are, because it's not like, okay, you have 2 years to win us a national championship. It's like you have 2 years to get us to an 8-4, and then 2 more years to compete for the conference championship, and then maybe 2 years after that compete for a national championship. I'm talking like at a Florida State or a Florida or an LSU or a Notre Dame, places like that. Other institutions like a Texas Tech would never do that. They would say, you got 4 years to get us to a bowl if they were in a crap or something like that. So I understand what you're saying, and I understand the question.
But like, look at Georgia Tech.
It's difficult to answer that, because the reason I do think it's fair is because they know it, and that's why they're getting paid.
But what about like the Georgia Tech coach who's on year 3? And Georgia Tech should not be expecting, a national championship within 3 or 4 years.
I think they were expecting a bowl by now, like 6-6, 7-5. I think that's a reasonable expectation, and that's why Neil Brown is on the hot seat. I mean, yes, we've made a bowl the past 2 years, but people have forgotten how good West Virginia used to be before Dana Hargison. He's brought this program to its knees, and it looks like Neil Brown isn't the guy to pull us back. See what I'm saying? Neil Brown brought us down. We need to find somebody that's going to pull us back. Who that is, I don't know, but it looks like it's not going to be Neil Brown. So for different institutions, maybe you have the same time frame, but it's different goals. So for a Texas, it's like 4 years and get us to the playoffs. For Georgia Tech, it's probably 3-4 years, get us to a bowl. See what I'm saying?
Right.
Blake Phillips, thank you for the $5 donation, says, KU grad here. Kansas has a history of always keeping coaches. Yeah, they take care of their own. Leopold wins. He will have status, named field, etc. I agree with that, but at the same time, people are going to come. I'm already hearing it. People are already interested in Lance Leopold, and if Kansas finishes 6-6 or better, he's going to be the coach of the year in the Big 12. That's how big of a turnaround this is.
Well, and here's another problem I think that the Big 12 is going to have, and it's not just the Big 12. I'll put the Pac-12 there too. What is the Big Ten's new TV deal? What is the SEC's new TV deal? They're going to start getting, twice the money that the Big 12 has. So the coaching salary, look where it is. It's going up and up and up. And if you were really a coach who wants to win and wants to play in a playoff in that, are you going to stay at Kansas, or are you going to move on to a Big Ten or SEC school if you get the choice?
Yeah.
Because, money is going to eventually become a problem because, we're already at coaches at $11 million, and we haven't doubled the TV contracts yet, So, within the next 5 years, I guarantee you a coach is going to be into $18 million, and probably within 10 years, you'll have the first $20 million coach.
Well, think of the predicament that Texas and Auburn's in right now. Texas fired Tom Herman, huge buyout. Auburn fired Gus Malzahn, huge buyout, and already Steve Sarkisian went 5-7 last year, and he came within 1 point of 2 points actually of beating Alabama, but last year he came really close and should have beaten Oklahoma, didn't, and ended up losing 5 in a row. So, just because they only lost to Alabama by 1 point doesn't mean that that's not going to affect them and they're going to lose more games. Same thing with Brian Harsin at Auburn. He looks like he has no idea what's going on around him or how to win games in the SEC or even the Big Ten, Penn State at home. And don't get me wrong, Penn State's a good team. But that was a home game, and this is year 2. You have to at least be competitive, not necessarily win. I didn't think Auburn had a chance of winning that game, but losing 40-12 that's not good. And so you're looking at these big name schools firing teams, shelling out a lot of money, and now they might have to start thinking about firing the next coach and another huge buyout.
Well, and the problem with the Auburn game is, think about this, and I hate Auburn. It's no secret being a Bama fan. I hate Auburn. But you have to put Auburn between the 5th and 6th best team in the SEC at least, brand-wise. And where would you put Penn State? 3rd in the Big Ten, maybe 4th?
Yeah, at least.
So they're pretty comparable. You know what I mean? How does an SEC team get embarrassed like that at home to a Big Ten team?
I don't know.
I don't think Georgia's going to get embarrassed.
Zero offense.
That hurts the SEC so bad when a comparable team up north travels down south and spanks you that bad.
Yeah.
Clearly it didn't hurt that bad because Florida and A&M are still chilling in the polls where they don't belong.
Oh, my God. I'm going to get to that here in a second. John Waffle, HGP, thank you for the $4.99 donation. Why do you want to fire Neil Brown? He's the best you're going to get. Urban or Stoops isn't coming. I'm not asking for Urban or Stoops. Not asking for Urban and Stoops. West Virginia is better than a 6-win team on a year-in and year-out basis. I even think Charles Huff from Marshall could do better because he's a great recruiter. Blake Phillips, thank you for the $2 donation, says, I heard Tide Guy call into 365 Sports Live Friday, LOL. Yeah, my guests are active. They watch this show. They watch 365. They watch all kinds of YouTube channels. So
Voice of college football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mark Rogers.
And yours is the best.
If you hear their, I appreciate that.
No
I agree.
Yeah. But I want to get a comment out real quick.
Or see their faces on other shows because they're very active, and I am too. I watch other people's shows. I think they have great content.
Hey, Blake Phillips. Also, I do videos. So Look at my
Yes.
channel and subscribe to it.
Tide guy. Absolutely. But Sergeant Pickles brought up something a few minutes ago about Texas A&M. Who was the other team? Miami, you said?
Florida.
Texas A&M and Florida.
To a lesser extent, Kentucky and Arkansas.
I have made videos on this. They have both of them have no business being ranked. And I understand they beat Miami. I understand it. But if you actually watch that game, they're not a top 25 team. They got beat by Appalachian State the week before, and then Appalachian State had to go to overtime to beat Troy this past Saturday, and then a sloppy, ugly game where there had to be a winner, and this time it was Texas A&M. They're not a top 25 team. The name and the money is speaking way too loud for Texas A&M. And for Florida, they're basically riding that win over Utah. And that was a perfect scenario for the SEC because it was the first game of the year. It was at Florida, a couple of time zones away. I mean, everybody was predicting the mild upset. Everybody was predicting that Florida was going to win that game. And it actually took an interception by Rising, the quarterback of Utah, for Florida to pull that out. Utah actually should have won that game. They were moving the ball in Florida, but I don't understand why those two teams are ranked. And then after that, Florida gets blown away by Kentucky. If you watch the game, Kentucky dominated Florida. And then this past Saturday, USF took them to the edge. Again, not a top 25 team. Shame on them for ranking A&M and Florida, and shame on them for not ranking Oregon State and Washington State.
And Arkansas. Let's not forget about Arkansas.
Where they have Arkansas?
They're too high.
Yeah, they're too high. I mean, you don't know. Missouri State should not have given Arkansas that type of fight, even with Bobby Petrino.
I mean, they had a 17-0 lead.
That was dude. If Arkansas would have lost that game, the curse of Petrino would have continued on.
Yes,
he literally wrecked our program.
But I'll tell you
and
guys
the Chad Morris too about being hot seats. His ass was on the hot seat during his first season after they lost to Vanderbilt.
Yep.
He pissed a lot of people off after that game.
Yeah. I think Arkansas is too high, and you saw it. And everybody thought that they were a good team after they beat South Carolina pretty handily. But then we saw just how bad South Carolina is this past Saturday. And then Missouri builds a 17-0 lead. Missouri State, let's not get this confused. Missouri State. Missouri's bad enough, but Missouri State built a 17-0 lead at Arkansas. Now, Arkansas did pull off the win, but an FCS school literally scared a top 25 Arkansas. They should not be. I understand they're undefeated. I'm okay with them being ranked, but not as high as they are. It's way too high. It's like they're setting
25. I'll give them 25 at the lowest and 20 at the highest.
Yeah, honestly, it seems like that these polls are trying to set up top 25, top 15 matchups between these SEC schools. Like Florida and Tennessee is now a top 25 matchup for no reason. It shouldn't be. Tennessee is ranked where they should be. I have no gripes about Tennessee. They're fine.
Well, number 15,
Florida shouldn't be
right?
ranked. Texas A&M shouldn't be ranked. Setting up a ranked game against Arkansas, and Arkansas shouldn't be as high as they are. I mean, it's freaking ridiculous, guys.
Here's three things that need to change with the polls. And if you do these three things, I think everybody would be happy. First of all, the preseason poll is just that, a preseason poll. You want to put it out, you put it out. Starting on week 1, you don't rank the teams where they're going to be. You rank the teams where they are. Because I'll be the first one to tell you, Alabama is not a number 2 team this year. I do believe we are probably.
Hey, going blue. Hey, I'm gonna bounce. I gotta do some errands. So, thank you for having me. And I hope to see you again.
All right, buddy. Anytime.
Peace, y'all. Nice to meet you, Ty Guy and Mr. Washington.
Nice to meet you.
You as well, Ed. See you, bud.
But Alabama's not the number 2 team right now. So you do the preseason poll, but you leave it at that. Right. The second thing you do is over half of the voters, goodbye. You're fired. We're bringing in new guys. Because here's the problem.
Rotate.
I put you at number 2 this week, and I got blinders. You're going to stay at number 2 until you lose. That's not how it goes. Maybe the third team has a better win. Maybe you have a stumble. Too many fan bases right now, and I get yelled at a lot being a Bama fan. Well, how can you say Bama's not 2? Well, they're not. Who have we played? How have we played? We're not the number 2 team right now. Nobody in the nobody in the history of college football won a national championship after week 2 or 3. Who cares where you are? Let's put them where they need to be. You know, like Bear Bryant always said, it don't matter where we are, cream will rise to the top, and if we're supposed to be there, we're going to be there, you know? And like,
hey, I'll go one step further. And it's fun to make your top 25. Us college football YouTubers, our top 25 doesn't affect anything. It's just fun. But the AP top 25 does affect some things. I'm not talking about the playoffs or anything like that. I mean, eventually they do. But it affects some of these big-time matchups. It makes it look bigger than what they actually are. Rankings shouldn't start until at least week 8. And that way you're not looking at the number beside of a team, but you're looking at the best matchups. Okay, what's the best matchup? The 2 best teams that are playing, that's where game day needs to go. That's where big noon kickoff needs to go. But instead, this AP poll voting catches the eyes of game day and big noon kickoff, and those are 2 ranked teams. Florida, Tennessee, that's going to be a great game. That's 2 ranked teams, and that's going to be a blowout. That's at Neyland, right?
Right.
Yeah, Tennessee's going to blow the doors off of Florida, but because both teams are ranked, game day is going to be there, and it's going to help Tennessee look better than what they actually are. And I'm not saying Tennessee is bad. I actually think they're pretty good. But the number beside Florida and Tennessee blowing that number out is going to make them look even better. Same situation with Mississippi State last year. Last year, who'd they beat? I can't remember. Was it Texas A&M?
A&M.
They beat Texas A&M. And as a 5-3 team, they were bumped to number 17. A 5-3 team bumped up to 17. And it set up a ranked versus ranked matchup with Arkansas. So it made Arkansas's win against Mississippi State look better because they were ranked, even though Mississippi State was freaking 5-3. I'm sorry, that's not a good win. That's an okay win, but that's not a top 25 win. That's stupid.
And that's my problem number 3 that we got to fix. Just because you have SEC on your jersey, don't mean that you have to be ranked. Because right now, realistically, there should be 6 Pac-12 teams ranked right now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And honestly, Texas A&M, they got the talent. They should be a top 5 team, but they're not playing it. You know what I mean? They don't deserve to be. You got Florida State, who should be ahead of them. You got Kansas, who should be ahead of them. You got Oregon State, Washington State. You know, I mean, you've got all these teams that are not ranked. That, let's give Kansas their due. They're 3-0 right now. Who would have ever thought that when the season started?
Yeah.
Get them in the rankings.
Yeah.
Get some of these big Florida.
They're about to be 4-0. They're gonna mollywop Duke.
Well, yeah. Honestly, I have said this on 3 other shows. Kansas will be 6-0 when they play Oklahoma.
Man.
Because they got
that better be college game day. Is that in Lawrence or is that in Oklahoma?
It would be Duke, Iowa State, and TCU, right?
Yep.
All at home.
Yeah, all at home.
All 3 of those are at home. Man.
Are they playing in Norman or in Lawrence?
Well, I don't have them beating
Norman.
No, I don't have them beating Oklahoma. I have them 6-0 going into that game.
So,
I know, but put game day there if they're undefeated going into it.
Yeah,
it'll be big noon kickoff from Fox, not game day.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Well,
it's all about television rights. I'll let them fight that. But see, with Kansas, I think you're right. They will go into Norman 6-0. but they're going to lose to Oklahoma in Norman and then Baylor on the road the following week. So then it'll be 6-2. But I think if you look at their schedule, those might be their only 2 losses. A lot of people are saying, oh, don't forget about Oklahoma State. No, they get them at home, and Oklahoma State is not as good as what they were last year. The ranking, once again, number 8 beside Oklahoma State is fooling people. Oklahoma State is not a top 10 team this year. They're just not. Kansas will beat Oklahoma State.
And before the season started, who would ever pick Kansas to have 6 wins? Even, let's say, 6 out of the first 8, nobody would have took that, And I mean, I do understand that Kansas, all the real good teams are on the back end. Their first 6,
But those 2 road games against West Virginia and Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one argument that I give people. They're like, oh, they don't get the really tough games. I'm like, define really tough, because it's not like they're playing like an Eastern Michigan and a Northern Illinois and an FCS and cupcake this and cupcake that. No. One cupcake, that was Tennessee Tech, and then road victory to West Virginia and road victory to Houston. Those are 2 good wins. That leads me to believe that they'll be able to beat Duke at home for sure, easily. Iowa State at home, yes. TCU at home, yes. Now, I have them losing to Oklahoma and Baylor, but that doesn't mean that they haven't beaten a good team. It just means they're not ready to beat an elite team. Kansas could very well be a top 25 team this year.
And Kansas this year has won 2 road games, and that's the same amount as the last 5 coaches each had. The coach has 3 road victories now. That's the most of the last, So you you have to give it to this coach and this Kansas team. Once they beat Texas last year, I know they didn't win out, but the team changed. They wasn't Kansas of old anymore. I mean, they were competitive the last 5 games, and they could have won a few of them. Yeah. But this year, they're really playing. They're, and I truly believe they will be 6-0 when they go to Norman.
Yeah, me too. I just don't. If they can go on the road and beat West Virginia and go on the road and see, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's not a good win against." I saw it in the comments just now. That's not a good win against West Virginia. Ask Baylor; they've never won in Morgantown ever. And then they follow that up by not just beating Houston on the road. They blew their doors off. What was it, 38-20, something like that, or 48-30? One of those scores. It was a beat down. Down.
And look what Kansas has done since 2007.
Yeah.
Any win for Kansas is a good win. I mean, they had years where any win is a good win, and
right.
Like you said, they beat West Virginia on the road. They beat Houston on the road. You know, it's easier to sneak by at home than it is on the road. And I don't think enough people understand that Houston was picked by probably 80% of all YouTubers, they had Houston as the best group of 5 team. They thought, they probably wasn't going to make the playoffs, but they thought that Houston would probably be, top 10, maybe top 12.
Yeah.
And what
they were preseason top 25.
Yeah. And what have they done?
Yep. Thank you, Andrew G _32 for the $1.99 donation. Says, how many W's does Coastal Carolina need to be ranked? Well, they're 3-0 right now. Their only really good win was against Army. All 3 were home games. So Army, Gardner-Webb, which is FCS, and then Buffalo. You have Georgia State and Georgia Southern. I think if Coastal Carolina wins both of those, they'll be barely ranked, and then they'll hover in the 24-25 until they play, it looks like, Old Dominion, at Marshall, and Appalachian State. If Coastal Carolina can get those 3, they could be jumped into the top 20, borderline top 15. Then they have interesting way to end this, at Virginia and at James Madison. But as far as for them to get ranked, I think they need to win at least 2 more games, maybe 3. But it looks like they can do it. So I think we'll see Coastal Carolina back in the rankings. Let's not forget they've been ranked in back-to-back polls in 2020 and 2021. So, it's not like they're coming out of nowhere. I expect Coastal Carolina to be ranked again. Speaking of the group of fives, who do you think has the chance to grab that, best group of five team this year? A lot of people thought it was going to be Houston. Last year, we all know it was Cincinnati. Who could it be this year?
Actually, right now, you have to give it to App State.
I would have said Fresno before the last couple of games.
Yeah, me too.
I still think they're a pretty good team, but they lost their quarterback and, tough losses to PAC schools.
Yeah, very tough. Especially in the last loss. They got blew out by USC.
Fresno always has a pretty tough schedule. They almost always play either UCLA, USC, and one other pretty tough PAC school.
I think one team that you have to think about for a group of five is Tulane. Tulane is looking really, really good. They just went on the road and beat Kansas State. And Cincinnati is not the Cincinnati from last year. I think Tulane is more than capable of winning the AAC this year. So I think they could be the best team out of the AAC. But as far as everybody, let me look at the other group of five teams. Nobody out of the Conference USA jumps out. The best team right now is FAU, and they're 2-2.
It's got to be the Sun Belt, right?
Army, no. Liberty, they already grabbed a loss, but still Liberty's good. They lost to, who was it, NC State, I think?
Yeah.
Close
nobody in the MAC can claim that. And then there's the Mountain West. Mountain West is actually a little down this year. Wyoming just lost to Wyoming just beat Air Force, which is actually bad for the Mountain West because Air Force was supposed to be one of the better teams, and they were undefeated going into that game. They would have been 3-0, and I think Air Force would have gotten ranked if they would have beaten Wyoming, but that screwed that up. So I'm sticking with Tulane, and looking at these other schools, it could be between Tulane and Coastal Carolina again. It looks like Louisiana's not doing great. Appalachian State, I know they beat Texas A&M, but they lost to somebody before them, North Carolina. But that was only a 2-point loss. It could be Appalachian State.
Yep.
It could be Appalachian State.
Appalachian State got 77 votes in the AP poll. So, but they're behind BYU right now. But to me, they would be about the best. And the one thing I would tell Andrew G. about Coastal Carolina being ranked, the problem is to get them ranked, there's other teams ahead of them that are also deserving, like Kansas. If they keep winning, you got to get them in there. Florida State, Oregon State, Washington State. There's too many teams that deserve to be ranked when you got teams like Florida, A&M taking up seats that they shouldn't. So this is a year that's kind of hard to get ranked. I mean,
a lot of people were having Marshall as possibly the best group of five team after they beat Texas A&M, Notre Dame, excuse me. But then they follow that up by losing to Bowling Green in overtime. So it's not going to be Marshall. 4 teams I'm looking at in the group of 5. It's going to be Tulane. It's going to be Liberty. I know they're not in the conference yet, but they're still a group of 5 team. And then 2 teams out of the Sun Belt, and that's Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State. Those 2 teams will play each other, so that'll work itself out. So the winner of App State, Coastal Carolina, could be the best group of 5 team this year.
See, and I tell everybody that the Big 12 needs to go in and swoop up Tulane. Then they can beat their chest and say, hey, we got an old SEC team.
That's true. That is true. And, if they're successful this year, it would make it look even better.
But unfortunately, have you seen Tulane Stadium?
Yeah, I have. It's not good.
That's the problem with Tulane being moved up. They haven't put any money in the stadium since they left.
Yeah, they used to play in the Superdome.
Yep.
You guys mind if I go on a soapbox here for a second?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So the SEC echo chamber, I mean, being a PAC fan, of course, I'm going to be, I just get a lot of, you're just jealous of the SEC. It's like, well, you rank all these teams, so all these ranked teams beat these ranked teams. And so
catch 22.
Yeah, but then we're not gonna, Alabama beats Austin Peay by 30 instead of 50, but they don't drop in the rankings, right?
Right.
So we get that side of it too. and all the PAC schools are just smashing on each other, but Oregon State's not ranked, Wazoo's not ranked, so who are they going to claim as, their quote-unquote big wins? But what I think is hilarious, we talk about, the playoff expansion, and we just want the best teams. What do we spend the first 3 to 5 weeks talking about? All the upsets. That's all we talk about, because they're the interesting things that happen. We don't care that Alabama smashed you there. Georgia smashed South Carolina. We're like, okay, yeah, that happened. And then we just move on. We talk about App State beating A&M, I always think that's hilarious when people say, oh, we just want the blue bloods. It's like, no, we kind of want a little of all of it, All right, that's the end of my rant.
But I will
and,
tell you one
the
thing.
one team that I'm behind right now that I'm totally flabbergasted as to why they're not ranked is Washington State. Washington State 100% should be ranked. I know they didn't look impressive against Idaho their first game, but they still won the game. I mean, you bumped up Arkansas for struggling against Missouri State. They're still ranked, so that shouldn't count against them, right? And then they go on the road and beat number 19 Wisconsin.
Yes.
And they're undefeated 3-0. Washington, out of all the teams that are not ranked, Washington State is number 1 on my list as far as should be ranked.
And I'd argue the top 20.
Washington State.
I have number 15.
Washington State and Idaho are less than 30 miles from each other. They are a rival. They are an old rival, So, I mean, you got to take that in consideration, too. I mean, I agree with what you said about the SEC, but here's the problem that the Pac-12 has and the Big 12 has, and even the ACC, your conference commissioners.
Oh, yeah.
We had Mike Slive, and now we got Sankey. And what do they tell you? The SEC, what? It just means more. We don't say, hey, I do, but the commission don't say, well, Alabama. No. Our 14 teams, it's all the teams. We raise everybody up when the other commissioners haven't done that.
Yep.
So, I mean, part of it is the conference's fault because your commissioners, you don't see your commissioners like you see, Sankey, you seen Slide, you always hear from them. And I think that's part of the problem. But I do believe I'm not one who's ever been an SEC homer and said that the SEC needs all these teams. I truly believe, and I've said it on many shows, the Pac-12 has 6 teams that deserve to be ranked right now.
Yes.
And if you're talking overall, right now, the SEC is still probably the best conference to win a championship. But if you look at who deserves to be ranked in this and that, the Pac-12 probably has more teams deserving to be ranked than any other conference.
100% agree. I think, honestly, it could be an even swap. You take out Texas A&M and Florida, and you put in Oregon State and Washington State, and then I'm gravy. I'm good. I'm happy. Thank you, Sky Rush. Yes. Mighty Racer, no. For the $19.99 donation, says, keep up the great content. I will try, sir. And wait, where's the camera? There we go. Horns down, brother. I agree. Always horns down here. But me and Texas fans, we get along. They understand. It's good. It's good merchandise. That's what horns down. That's what it comes down to. Horns down is great merchandise, and it gets on Texas nerves. But we will try to keep up the great content. So far, have y'all been like? Well, besides Kansas, I got to take them off the board because that's an obvious choice. Has there any, besides Kansas, what has surprised you the most about the start of the season so far?
Syracuse, for one.
Yes.
That was a good win.
Yes.
What about another basketball school named Duke?
Yeah. Basically,
Duke is 3-0 also.
All the basketball schools, for whatever reason, have looked surprisingly good.
Well, except for Louisville.
And UCLA.
Oh, my gosh.
UCLA, oh, my God.
I will say this. A lot of people say, like, 3-0, they haven't played anybody, blah, blah, blah. For Duke, that is the case. Their 3-0 doesn't mean that much. But for Kansas, their 3-0 is looking solid. Syracuse, I know Louisville isn't great, but Louisville pushed Florida State to the edge. And Syracuse absolutely drowned Louisville. I mean, they punched them in the mouth and then just kept them there. And then, there were some questionable calls in the Purdue game that people think, basically helped Syracuse win the game. That's always going to be talked about. But that's a good win against Purdue. So Syracuse is 3-0 with wins over Louisville and Purdue.
That's Power 5 wins right
here,
there.
Yeah, I wouldn't put them in over Oregon State and Washington State, but I would put them in over A&M, maybe not Florida. Florida and Syracuse, because Florida does have a win over a top 10 team, okay? So you have to factor that in. But if it was between those two, it would be a coin toss for me. So
Oregon's problem is
I'm okay with Syracuse not being ranked as of right now.
Yeah, Oregon State's problem is they haven't had that Power 5 win despite looking excellent in the games they have played. They're kind of the Duke, but even better.
Yeah, I mean they have the best power group of 5 team wins. Like they blasted Boise State at home, and then they went on the road and beat a good Fresno State. So they beat the best of the group of 5.
Yep.
And they're undefeated. I would give, to me that's worth at least number 25.
Yeah.
Going up against A&M, who lost to a group of 5 at home and can't score more than 2 touchdowns. I would put them in over A&M for sure. Kadu, thank you for the $5 donation. Says quite a bit of truth here. We try to stick to mainly the truth. Sometimes we indulge, but we try to stick with the truth. The Big 12 did everything to prop up Texas and Oklahoma and left the rest to starve. And I'm going to add on to this. And look what happened. They left the Big 12. The Big 12 did everything to make Oklahoma and Texas look better than what they actually were. Kind of here's Oklahoma and Texas, and here's the rest of the Big 12. And now that they're leaving, they're like, oh, maybe we should have been pushing these other brands as well. Uh-oh. Now what do we do? Now, I guess go get 4 group of 5 teams. Maybe that'll help.
What would have happened if the Big 12 got together 10 years ago and said, you know what, we're tired of Texas. We're not giving you your no way no more. Colorado, go ahead and stay. Missouri, you stay. Nebraska, you stay. We're getting rid of Texas. If you want to run your mouth, you can go with them.
Well, on top of that, remember Texas almost went to the Pac-12. I bet the Big 12 wishes that they would have pushed them out the door now. They would still have Nebraska, Missouri, and A&M probably.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I think Texas and OU going to the PAC would have actually been better off for everybody because the Pac-12 at the time was a legit conference. They had SC and Washington and Oregon were all, going to New Year's 6 games, even in the BCS era.
Yep.
But I will say, Jeff, like you were talking about for commissioners, there is no doubt the SEC, not that they've, done anything special, but they have put their good teams, they have scheduled them favorably every year. They look ahead, they schedule out, they try not to give them back-to-back really tough road games or really hard away, back-to-back Georgia and Florida back when they were good. They would try and break them up. The Pac-12 would have, Washington playing USC on the road, then Oregon on the road, and then, Utah at home back-to-back-to-back weeks and just get murdered. So they did not care about – it's not that you're trying to, you're not necessarily making it easier because the schedule is what it is, but they didn't set their teams up for success at all.
But like you said, they're trying to make them succeed. You want your conference to have favorable matchups, and
you feature your good teams.
Exactly.
Well, see, that's why I've talked about in the past, and it's actually smart what the SEC has done. They have protected their teams by going with that 8 conference game, and they're only guaranteed 4 road games a year. Now, sometimes they'll schedule an out-of-conference road, but how many times do we see an SEC team go on the road out of conference? Not very much. Alabama did it this year, but it's few and far between other than Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt will go anywhere. They just don't care. But as far as SEC teams, they don't like going on the road out of conference, and then once they get into conference, 4 road games.
Yeah, and all
yes,
of those...
it's the SEC, and they're considered to be tougher road trips than others. But what if one year, you grab Missouri and Vanderbilt as 2 of your road trips?
Yeah, all of those
doesn't look that bad.
Yeah, all of those quote-unquote neutral site games to start the season that Bama and Auburn play, but they're always in Atlanta against Oregon or Washington or someone else. Those are not neutral site in the slightest.
You are 100% correct. Here's an example All right, so for Texas A&M, here's how their schedule is set up. Let's see here. 4 true road games. 4. So at Mississippi State, at Alabama, at South Carolina, at Auburn. And then they have the neutral game against Arkansas. But for road, that's not bad. I mean, at Alabama, that's brutal. Auburn sucks, Carolina sucks, and Mississippi State is up and down. So if Texas A&M is elite, they should go 3-1. But I guarantee you that's not what's going to happen.
Even going into the season, though, you said, okay, well, Bama, that's probably a tough sell either way, and maybe they drop one to Auburn, so they're 500 on the road, and then they just got to take care of business in most of their home games.
Yep,
and they're right there.
I mean, you think about the SEC. Really, most years, SEC teams have 4 true road games. If you can go 50-50, that's 2 losses, and then take care of home field, you're a 10-win team.
I'm still waiting on that Week 9 Austin P matchup for Bama. Let's go, Jeff.
Do you know how many?
Gotta love them games.
Do you know how many road trips West Virginia has this year?
6.
Probably a few, I'm guessing.
6. So we had Pitt to start out the season. Our next game at Virginia Tech, right? After that, at Texas, then at Texas Tech, then at Iowa State, and then at Oklahoma State. And this is our easier year. Our hard year, we have Baylor and Oklahoma on the road.
The Pitt and Virginia Tech games aren't that bad for travel.
Right. But it's still rivals, and the atmosphere is absolutely insane. Like that backyard brawl, my gosh, I have never – and I've been to Clemson games, and I've been to West Virginia games, and let's see who else. I've been to a Tennessee game, South Carolina game. Haven't been to a Georgia game. So I've been to several games, and I went to the ACC championship back in 2013 when Florida State whooped the crap out of Duke. And West Virginia has great home environment, but that game was different. I mean, there was probably 25,000 West Virginia fans, maybe even 30, and they were loud. And, since West Virginia was there, Pitt, they were loud. I mean, it was just – and it was the highest attendance ever for a sporting event or any event for that matter in the city of Pittsburgh in history. Wow. Over 70,000 people were there. And I know 70,000 compared to, like a Texas A&M 100,000 or Alabama 100,000, that's not much at all. But for, a Pitt game where they averaged about 45,000 on a good day, over 70,000 is saying something.
People talk smack about Washington, and they get around 70,000.
Yeah, y'all's capacity is over 70,000.
Apparently, people were saying all in the broadcast there were a couple, sparse sections up top because it was about, I think they said 60, right around 65,000 attendance.
I thought it was
our school isn't even in session yet, so the students that showed up, they're not even in class yet. So everyone's like, right. Oh, the student section, blah blah blah. We start school later than everybody, so that place will be. After a big win like that, Washington will be absolutely roaring.
Well, another thing is Washington is actually rated a top 10 loudest stadium in the nation.
I want to say it was back in the day. I want to say even before I was born, we played. I want to say it was Nebraska. We had a big rivalry against Nebraska back in the day, and they did on-field recording, and it was like 120 or 130 decibels, basically like standing next to a jet engine on takeoff. And a lot of the same fans are fans of the Seahawks. They're known to be loud as well. So, for all the fair weather fanning people try and give us, when we come out to play, we support our teams.
Yeah, I knew I saw 68,000. That's what the attendance was actually announced at 68,000, just over 68,000. So it was
not bad.
It was close. That's 97%. And it's designed in similar fashion to the Seahawks as far as the awning and all that stuff. I know the Seahawks is a little more stretched out, so it traps it more, but they have that awning that stretches pretty much the length of the sideline, and the way the bowl underneath traps it in. Pretty good noise. And another thing about that awning is not only does it trap noise, but it actually creates vibration. So it actually intensifies the noise. It doesn't just trap it. it intensifies it. A lot of people think that that's just for shade, which I guess technically it is, but it's actually to help with the home field noise.
They tore the whole main stands down and rebuilt the stadium a few years back, and it's beautiful now. It's about the
that
same
lower
size.
section is what they really made look
that
awesome.
north
It looks
end is
amazing.
a lot better. They rebuilt it, but they kept basically the exact same design, like you're saying. It was a good design. They just rebuilt the whole thing.
John Waffle H2P, thank you for the $9.99 donation. Says, breaking news: Pitt just got accepted to the SEC. We're going to run college football now. WU just lost more of their value and now has no choice but to drop to Conference USA. So there's your breaking news for the day from John Waffle H2P. Thank you for sharing that, buddy.
I think you misread the headlines. The SEC actually hired Waste Management to do our janitorial work this year.
Oh, I was thinking of a different headline, Jeff. I was going to tell John Waffle. I bet you Vandy's celebrating. They just picked up an extra win each year.
Yeah,
there you go. Well, actually, if you read this comment, that would actually make West Virginia more valuable because that's a rivalry on deck. So the value that West Virginia already had, that would actually increase it because you lock in the backyard brawl.
Now you want to hear something funny about Vandy? Texas has a losing record against Vandy. The last time Texas beat Vanderbilt, the Queen, who just passed away, was 1 year old.
Wow. Whoa, that's good trash talk material right there. Yeah. Blake Phillips, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, Tide guy, he's talking to you. I'm excited about your mark. I think the Big 12 is solid. What do you think about your mark?
I think you hired him about 4 years too late. I mean, I think it's a great hire. I think, the damage is done. It's too bad he wasn't there before Texas and OU made their announcement. I think he's going to do wonderful things for you. And I think he is a guy kind of like Sankey. He's not going to pick one team and prop them up like you guys have been doing. He's already went to every college in the Big 12, talked to everybody. He's trying to get a feel. So I think he is going to prop all of you guys up evenly, and he's going to be a Big 12 guy instead of a one or two team guy like you had in Bowlesby.
Okay, so and he is making moves. What I'm hearing, Arizona is a lock to join the Big 12. And the current percentages of the other teams, well, number one, they're saying Colorado is actually very much in doubt right now. But the second choice is actually San Diego State, then Utah, then Arizona State, then Washington State, and then Colorado. Now, that's not saying Washington State has a great chance. They're just saying they have a better chance than Colorado. What would y'all think about that? Arizona is coming. That's what they're saying. Arizona's coming. That's a lock. If that's a lock, then I would have to say that the chances of Arizona State joining would be higher than San Diego State, right?
Not right. To stoke the fires of the Big 12, but I think they think they're kind of calling shots and we'll take you and we'll take you. The Big 10 holds the guillotine over the PAC's head right now, and if they lop off Oregon and Washington, that's when it falls apart. The Big 12 has no power currently as it stands. They are reactive to what's going on, despite what your mark says. And that's not me talking down on the Big 12. It's just the reality. The PAC isn't in a situation to make moves either. I think it's more like Arizona's a lock because not that they've applied and been accepted, because the grass isn't necessarily greener in the Big 12 if the PAC stays as it is for the time being. This is all on the conjecture that the PAC's going to fall apart.
People need to realize that, and I don't know if you heard this, even Sergeant Pickles, but the Big 10 did answer Oregon and Washington. The answer was no.
Right.
And that is official. The problem is Washington. Washington cannot go anywhere right now. Okay? We've hit our bubble now. So if Washington moves, it triggers the Sherman Act, which is an antitrust act, and there will be lawsuits. So Washington can't move. So if you look what's happened, the Pac-12 has got together. They haven't signed their rights yet, but they're really close to doing a 5 to 7 year deal. They're going to get ESPN and they're going to get Amazon. You guys will be on Amazon. They got to keep it for 5 to 7 years because that's when the next 5 years they're going to work on how to stop this antitrust. And also, the ESPN is working behind the scenes right now with the ACC. They're trying to get them more money to agree to shorten that grant of rights to 2029. Well, guess what? That's the same time as what the Pac-12 is going to give their rights to. So it's all going to come at a head, and you're still going to hear talking, but expansion is now done. The teams who are moving are moving. No other teams are going to sign because contracts are going to be signed by the Pac-12 probably in the next 30 days. So that's going to lock everybody in. Now, in 5 years, yeah, Arizona could be a lock. Utah, who knows where everybody's going to go because that's when the next shakeup will hit. But I think everybody can be assured that contracts are about to be signed. Everything's going to calm down until probably 2026, 2027, you start hearing rumblings that so-and-so's going to the Big Ten in 2029 or 2030.
Let me ask you this. 2 questions. Number one, is there a difference in the antitrust law between Washington leaving and, say, like a lower brand, like a Washington State, Colorado, Utah, Arizona State, whoever? And number 2, if there is a difference, what is it?
Okay, here's the difference. Okay, and
so there is, yes.
There's a huge difference. Now,
okay.
the reason why I say it's Washington is, and they happen to go back 50 years, and I did video on this, 3 weeks ago. But what the antitrust does is they go back 50 years, and they look at everybody who owns a national championship. And right now, all 5 conferences have national championships. All the power is divided. Okay? But now that USC and UCLA are leaving for the Big Ten, the only team in the Pac-12 with the championship is Washington.
Colorado, 1990.
Okay, maybe it was 20. They're not counting Colorado's for some reason.
Oh, they would have been in the Big 12 at the time.
Yeah, they were Big 12.
But they weren't in the PAC.
But they're saying that if Washington leaves, that it triggers this antitrust. Now, the other thing you got to be careful on, and this could backfire for the Big 12, is if the Big 12 were to take Arizona, Utah, Stanford, and Colorado, or in California, let's say. And the reason I say those 4 teams is that's a lot of the big market areas. Okay, I'm not saying they're the better teams or this and that, but say those 4 teams go, and then the 6 teams that are remaining decides to break up, well, then they would sue the Big 12 for breaking up a conference antitrust because now Washington has to go somewhere, and that would trigger it again. So that's where everybody's kind of stuck. Yeah, right
so,
now.
Hold on. So who does the antitrust hurt and who do they benefit?
Well, the antitrust is supposed to be to stop monopolies. They don't want to see the Big Ten against the SEC. They don't want all the power in 2 conferences.
Yeah.
They're okay, is what I'm hearing is they're okay with 3 conferences.
Okay.
But they would like to have 4 conferences at least or more. And right now it's written where there has to be 5.
Right.
So that's why Washington can't move right this minute, because whoever takes Washington, that conference is going to be sued.
Right. Okay.
Or whoever forces Washington to leave and kills the conference, that conference would be sued for antitrust laws.
Gotcha. So it's basically anti-monopolizing law.
Right. So, and if you've seen the Big Ten and the SEC kind of pushed away, we're not breaking away from the NCAA now. We want to keep the NCAA. We want more power, but we're going to leave it with the NCAA. And part of that also is, and people don't understand this, is do you know how expensive it would be for 2 conferences to break away? and start their
Yeah.
own governing body.
Well, you know that Greg Sankey is actually backing staying with the NCAA as long as there's some changes.
Yep.
I'm guessing because of the they didn't realize how much the cost would be until they actually figured out. Now they're like, that's too much, so let's rework this a little bit.
Yeah, see, the SEC didn't think it was bad because right now the 5 major conferences pay let's call it a commission to the NCAA. And so that's what they thought. Well, heck, that ain't a lot of money. The Big Ten and the SEC, we can eat that. But what they didn't know is the non-Power 5, each one of those universities kick a little bit to the NCAA also.
Okay.
And then the NCAA basketball tournament really pays for the NCAA. So
yeah, that's like 100%.
Yeah. So once you start looking at all that money, well, these TV contracts need to get a lot bigger. Or we're going to lose money, per team.
Right.
So that's kind of why you've seen it back out a little bit.
Going back,
that makes sense.
Going back kind of more to your hypotheticals. I mean, it's going to sound arrogant being in the position I'm in, but I do think the Big Ten covets Washington and Oregon in the long term. It makes sense. They're in the markets they want. It makes sense as a travel partner. Whether that comes to be, it's hard to say. Like you're saying, there's a lot of legal spider webs to go through. But just on the pure speculation, should the Big 12 look at Oregon State and Washington State? I would argue they're in a better position than, this isn't me talking down on teams like Iowa State and Kansas State, but they're right there. They've been looked down on for a long time, but they can put good ball on the field. And if you want to make this market comparison, Manhattan, Kansas is not exactly Manhattan, New York. Pullman, Washington is very comparable, and they can put a good ball team together. So, it's not me talking down on the Big 12 teams, but they keep saying, San Diego State and Memphis and this and that. It's like Oregon State and Wazoo, despite being, viewed as they are power schools, and they have put together good teams. Drew Bledsoe had that Washington State team going to Rose Bowls.
Nice.
And right now, most people don't know
that
Washington is the number 2 team on the Big Ten's wish list. Notre Dame obviously is number 1.
Yeah, Notre Dame number 1.
But then it's Washington. And then
maybe well, let me ask you this: why didn't it affect Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC and USC and UCLA to the Big Ten?
Because it doesn't necessarily break the conferences immediately.
Okay.
They can still in theory, survive.
We had 3 national champions in the Pac-12. Well, now that moved, 2 of them went over to the Big Ten. And the same would happen if the ACC opened up tomorrow. If Clemson, Florida State, and Miami leave, well, there you go. You got the antitrust will kick in again. So that's why I think you haven't seen anybody made a push yet to break the grant of rights, because now you're going to spend millions of dollars to break that, and then you're facing antitrust. So I think they're putting the big boy lawyers to try to see. And if you notice, Tommy Tuberville and I get your Senator
Joe Manchin.
They're working on legislation right now for the NCAA.
Yeah. Yep, I saw that. And it is kind of eyebrow-raising to see all the connections between West Virginia and some SEC folk, like the senator for West Virginia, Joe Manchin, working with the Alabama senator, Tommy Tuberville, specifically working together for the NIL thing. And then the ties between Greg Sankey and Shane Lyons, the West Virginia athletic director. They're part of the NCAA. What's the name of that group? The NCAA, not recovery group, but something to help it better. It's a group that trying to help it get better.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, that's the connection. And so there are a lot of, even if West Virginia doesn't join the SEC, there's enough connections to where it will make you think about it.
Tommy Tuberville should stick to losing to Bama.
And the fact that the first go around, it was down to Texas A&M in either Missouri or West Virginia. And I actually got some messages earlier that told me people that were close to the situation told them that if West Virginia had won the national championship in 2007, that they would have been a lock to join the SEC over Missouri. So that's a ripple effect that a lot of people don't like. There's so many ripples. What happens today affects things that happen 5-10 years from now that you don't even realize. Like, yeah, it sucked that we lost to Pitt and 13-9, 13-9, 13-9. We'll hear that forever. And we didn't win a national championship. We didn't even get to one. And, it sucks to think about, but it went beyond that. That affected West Virginia being able to join the SEC in the future.
Well, and these teams also need to learn. And, this, I'll talk to Takis Pitt and I'll talk to John Waffle. They want to brag. They won a national championship in 76 and all these others in the past. Well, if you listen to what I just said and you listen to the NCAA, they're only going back 30 years on some and 50 on the other.
Yeah.
So they don't care what you've done over 50 years ago. They're looking at what's currently going on.
Right.
And like you said, a simple thing is you winning a national championship in 07, that would have got you in.
Yep.
Real quick, Jeff, are things like New Year's Six games or college football playoff appearances being factored in at all? Because it does create a bigger list, but you're going to see a lot of the same faces.
They are, and I'll tell you something, and I'm working on it. I don't know if you heard. I quit doing videos. I did a video today. I quit doing videos for 10 days. I moved, and I had to switch everything around, and it was just too hectic to do videos.
Yep.
But I did one today. But I still have most of the numbers done because you wanted me to do a New Year's Six bowl.
Yep.
And I'm working on that, but it takes a lot of time to get all these. And I'm just one person, and
that's why I asked you. I got a full-time job.
Yeah. So that I am working on that, and you will get the numbers, and you will see. And I got to break down. I'm going to do 5 videos on it. I'm going to do each conference, and then each team where they've been in the the New Year's Six and that, and kind of give you a breakdown that way.
I like it.
That is being factored in, but the NCAA championships in football is the big one right now that they're really pushing.
Yeah. It would be curious then if they do consider Colorado as part of, what conference you were in at the time, then they're part of what's holding on for the Big 12. Because outside of Texas, Oklahoma, which other Big 12 team has a championship? Am I forgetting something?
No, and I misspoke earlier.
Nebraska, I guess, at the time?
They are counting Colorado's national championship. But what's hurting is if Washington goes to the Big 10, obviously 3 other teams are going to go, and it's going to more than likely be Stanford, Cal, and Oregon. That is going to kill the Pac-12. And even though Colorado has a championship, more than likely the Big 12 picks them up, and there goes that championship. So I did misspeak earlier. They are counting Colorado's championship, but that's the scenario that they think will happen.
So the antitrust is actually trying to keep any of the current Power 5 conferences from dissolving as it's written right now.
As it's written right now.
Okay. See, I didn't know that. I can do a video on that. That's a good video right there.
The one thing I did here, I forget if it was 8 members or less, but there was a certain number that if you triggered taking enough members from a conference where they have, I think it was 8 or less, and the conference is forced to dissolve, that would trigger some kind of lawsuit stipulation as well.
Well, and see, that's why they said that they were trying to get 8 teams in the ACC to vote to disband. And if that happens, then the antitrust law wouldn't affect that because that would be the conference voting itself to disband instead of getting picked apart and dissolving. They would be voting themselves to dissolve.
But then I also heard with that, one of the biggest reasons why you haven't saw 8 break away also in the ACC is something with the North Carolina legislature that if North Carolina and Duke leave, it would be detrimental to Wake Forest and North Carolina State. So you either take them all or you take none. Is kind
Right.
Kind of like California's doing right now with their regents. They're fighting because California actually has a meeting the 22nd to discuss UCLA leaving. It's not over yet. They're still trying to fight it. They're not going to win, but they are fighting it, and they have their next meeting September 22nd.
The only thing that'll happen out of that is UCLA may have to kick some of the money to the UC system and Cal specifically. Yep. But for the North Carolina legislature, I'm guessing it's a lot of the same where they can probably control UNC and NC State. They have very little say over what Wake and Duke do in the overall
Duke's
scheme of things.
Private
schools have a lot more autonomy.
Right. John Waffle HCP, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. I think you actually hit the nail on the head with this one. So Pitt winning a natty in 76 is not valuable, but one in the early 90s is. Yeah.
What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, that's just how it's worded.
I mean, this comes from a Washington guy whose championship was 30 years ago. What have you done for me lately?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Same thing with Georgia fans before they won last year's national championship.
Nobody talks about Princeton and Yale and, all those national because it was so long ago. You know.
Exactly right, buddy. So it seems like this was not what I thought it was as far as the antitrust. So as it's written right now, they're trying to keep all five together as of right now, the way it's written right now. Now that they're looking into it, see if they can rework it and see if there's room to, maybe get down to 4 or 3. But as of right now, it's written where they want 5 to exist, and taking teams that are detrimental to the conference that could cause it to dissolve is breaking that antitrust. And then when you go to the ACC and they find a loophole to where, hey, if we get 8 teams to vote to dissolve, then they're voting on themselves. Well, then the North Carolina legislation kicks in, and, you take North Carolina and Duke, that hurts Wake Forest and NC State, so we're going to sue you for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's not just one set of laws you're dealing with.
And then that's not even talking about the California legislation that they're trying to, put some pressure on UCLA. I know they're not going to be able to keep UCLA from going, but, they're going to try to get some money out of them to go to Cal and Stanford. They can't touch USC because they're not a state institution, but I'm sure there's some type of way that they can force some type of percentage from UCLA to kick back to Stanford and Cal, since they're violating some kind of trust there as well. My gosh.
One thing I would love to see, I would love to see the regents say, UCLA, you can't go, and this is the law, and you're not going. And then USC says, okay, goodbye. Washington, Stanford, come on, you're going with us. And then all of California gets screwed. And then who's going to pay UCLA the money that they owe? Because they're majorly in debt in the athletic department.
The only thing that I would throw back on that is if they can keep UCLA, then they probably could keep Stanford. So they would say Oregon, Washington, and somebody else, but not Stanford.
No, see, they can't keep Stanford because Stanford is private.
Oh, okay. I thought Stanford was part of the.
No.
Okay.
Nope. It's a private college.
I will say, Jeff. Tony already burst the bubble. UCLA is going. It's just a matter of how and maybe when. Yeah. Because what Tony cleared it up for me, because I was confused on this. California system is very weirdly unique in that they have UCLA and Cal are co-flagships. It's like one of the only situations where that's true. So on that board of regents, there's a bunch of people from the Bay Area type system, and then a bunch of people from the UCLA Los Angeles area. And he said at the board of trustees meeting where the governor's, ranting and raving, all the people that knew about this deal beforehand and all the UCLA people shut their mouths, and all the Cal people are just ranting about all this garbage, and the Cal people don't know anything about football. So it was just kind of like, it was very clear who was in the know and who wasn't. But at the end of it, UCLA is going to go. It's just a matter of how and when.
Let me ask you this. Is there any possible way to where the Board of Regents could keep UCLA from playing in the Rose Bowl and force them to share a stadium with USC because the city owns the Rose Bowl.
No, the city owns the Rose Bowl, not the state.
Right.
So
well, okay. Could the city?
Well, the city could, but the problem is UCLA has already signed like a 99-year lease, and I don't know when it was signed, but they signed such a long lease that, they could say that, well, when this is up, we're not going to renew it. But it's so far out in the future that
if the Big Ten takes enough Pac-12 schools, you might as well play the championship game there and call it the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, wait, no, the Big Ten teams don't want to play in the Rose Bowl. They don't usually do well out there.
Yeah. I mean, Bama's done better in the Rose Bowl than them.
Okay. John Waffle H2P, thank you for the $4.99 donation. And yes, this does clear it up. Let me put it like this: Pitt won a national championship. Virginia, Wake, Duke have never won in football. Yeah, but once again, it goes by years out. You're too far out for them to consider that valuable, according to how it's worded in the antitrust laws.
I thought Duke won a national championship.
Basketball, not football.
No, I thought they won one back when Wallace Wade went there from Alabama. He won a national championship at Alabama.
You're talking like all time.
Yeah, and then he went out there and won one.
But was that more recent than Pitt's win?
No. I'm talking back in like the 30s.
Okay.
You might be right because
you're talking leather helmet football.
Yeah. I told you I was old.
I mean, we're talking before Steve Spurrier was the head coach of Duke.
Yeah.
Washington played some epic games in those days against like Army and Duke and Pennsylvania and all these other schools.
Duke does not officially claim a national championship, but unclaimed is 36-41 under Wallace Wade.
So it's like Washington's 1960 championship. We technically have one, but the school doesn't really recognize it.
Why does that happen?
Well, because back then they had 12 people. They had 12 different parties just giving out national championships.
Yeah, they had a million different polls before the AP and coaches were kind of consolidated. We still have Oregon fans trolling us that we only have half a national championship because we split it with Miami, but that's half a more than they have.
That's still a full. It's just you have one and they have one. You can't. It's kind of like whenever Nebraska split. Who did Nebraska split one with? They split one with. Was it Michigan? No. Michigan split one with.
Georgia Tech. No,
Miami.
Georgia Tech was the year Colorado, right?
Yeah,
okay, Georgia Tech and Colorado.
Yeah. I think it was Miami and Nebraska. No, not Miami.
It was Miami and
Michigan
Washington.
and Miami.
It was Michigan and was it Michigan and Nebraska?
Either Michigan. Yeah, it might have been.
I think it was Nebraska because I remember Scott Frost saying Michigan don't deserve it. It was Nebraska because that's why Michigan fans hate Scott Frost.
Right, there you go. It was Michigan and Nebraska. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. People forget about all those split. I mean, that was crazy. I mean,
Washington
that's one of the main reasons why they came out with the BCS and then the playoffs, because the split national champ. I mean, arguments all over the place. And when you think about it, a split national championship doesn't make sense. Like a national champion means you're the champions of the nation. If there's two, then it's like should make them play. Like the years that there were split, then you should have taken the two teams that split it and they should have played for it.
Well, and think about this. A lot of people don't understand. And I think this affects John Waffles also. I think it was 1978 was the first year they awarded the national championship after the bowl games. Because for the longest time, you were awarded the national championship after the season.
Yep.
And you went on and played another bowl game against a great team.
And you could lose and still be the national champion.
Yeah.
Didn't that happen to Alabama?
Yeah, Alabama, we lost to Texas. We lost to Notre Dame, but we were still national champions because they gave it to us before, the bowl game.
John Waffle says Pitt, technically Pitt claims a split of 1980. That's Georgia's solely, ain't it?
Well, technically, Georgia's not the 1980 national champion, and I'll tell you why. Because there were some funky things going on in 1980, and Georgia did not play the two-time defending national champion Alabama or LSU that year. A lot
So
of people don't realize
scheduling
that.
was, kind of working around the heavyweights.
Well, there was like weather, something. They just canceled the games.
Gotcha.
So, and I mean, that was back when the SEC played everybody. Everybody played everybody. But if you look at the 1980, Georgia didn't play Alabama or LSU that year.
And then 81 was Clemson, and 82 was Penn State.
And 84 was BYU.
Yep.
I got something to say about that, Jeff.
I thought you would.
BYU went undefeated playing in the WAC. They did beat Michigan in, I want to say, the Holiday Bowl, right? Washington.
Yep.
Washington went 11-1, beat Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl, and was not picked national champion.
And that's when they had McMahon, right?
Quarterback.
Quarterback. Yeah.
I want to say it was Hugh Millen, maybe.
I thought it was McMahon that won that.
Might have been.
I don't know. That was when I was like 2 years old, 3 years old.
That was McMahon.
That was the start of Don James era for sure.
Yeah. Larry Pilgrim, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, if you want to talk crap on Pitt, remind them who the first team to lose a New Year's Six Bowl to a group of 5.
Ooh, that's bad.
Ooh.
UW's lost a couple of New Year's Six recently, but it was
Who did they lose to, though?
Ohio State.
Who did they lose to? Now that's got me thinking.
Who won a New Year's Six?
That's what I'm thinking. Boise State was a group of 5.
That's Oklahoma, though.
Yeah, Oklahoma, and didn't they beat somebody else? What about Utah? Wasn't Utah a group of 5 when they beat one? They beat Alabama, yeah.
That
Cincinnati went in 2019, but they lost to Georgia. That is a great. Justin says Houston beat Florida State.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Oh, that was Urban Meyer. No, not Urban Meyer.
Bobby Bowden.
No. I'm talking for Houston. That wasn't Tom Herman, was it?
No.
That was before him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Anybody know the answer to that? Man.
We need a Golden Blue Dude trivia question of the day.
Yeah. This is a good one right here. First team to lose a New Year's Six Bowl to a group of 5. Who was the group of 5, and who was what was it? It wasn't Pitt, was it?
I have a feeling for some reason that it's a team that was group of 5 but isn't anymore.
Yeah, hold on. Let me
But I mean, back then you could take Penn State, you could take, there was a lot of independent schools who would have been a group of 5.
Someone saying Boise State beat Florida State?
Let's see. Stupid thing likes to reword. No, I worded it the way.
And I'm trying to think of when did the New Year's Six Bowls start?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Wasn't that in the BCS began? Because the bowls were all.
New Year's Six Bowl appearances. Here we go. Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Notre Dame, Florida State, Oregon, Michigan, Washington, Michigan State, Washington, Michigan, Baylor, Ole Miss, Penn State, Wisconsin, Florida, LSU, Cincinnati. We already got them. Oklahoma State, Auburn, USC, UCF, but they beat Auburn. That wasn't the first one.
The Boise
Arizona,
were before
Boise
that.
State, we already covered them. Was TCU a group of 5 whenever they?
Yeah,
they were.
The Big 12.
Who did they beat in their group of 5? And it shows they won. Yeah, they won. Western Michigan was in it. And
but
won.
Did they win?
No, they lost though. Memphis was in it, but they lost.
Looks like you got a new video.
But
idea,
it says
Jeff.
Pitt was only in one and they lost, but that would be last year, right? Against Michigan State.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would have thought it would have been Boise State with an upset, but
Boise State over
07 over Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the early ones now, so hold on.
But
that was the famous Statue of Liberty play.
Yes.
Right.
Chris Peterson, who eventually went coach of the Huskies.
Yeah.
Boise
Great
State
coach,
was
by
a
the way.
monster.
He needs to come out of retirement. He's a great coach.
He's currently working for the network, and the whole deal was when he left, everyone that final season, you could just kind of tell he, reached the New Year's Six games. He reached the CFP, and I don't think he just wanted to deal with big school politics. That's why he liked being at Boise so much. But he was at the press conference they held to introduce Kalen DeBoer, so he clearly has, the gold stamp, the rubber stamp from Chris Peterson that's the guy for the job. He's still involved in the school.
But see, the problem with coaching today is it's a lot different.
Oh, no, he's answering it right here. Larry Pilgrim, thank you for the $5 donation, says Utah beat Pitt, original BCS Buster in 04-05. Boise was next year.
Oh, okay.
What?
Was that Urban Meyer, Utah, or before that?
No, that had to be Urban Meyer.
That had to be Urban Meyer,
because he didn't go to Florida till the year after, like immediately the year after that.
Right.
Oh, no.
Holy crap. I forgot about that. Hold on.
Yeah.
What bowl was that? Was that Orange Bowl?
Beating Pitt?
That probably would have been Fiesta.
Fiesta or the Orange, yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm checking. Hold on. Orange Bowl. No, that's the. It must be the wrong year. I'm working on it, guys. Y'all keep talking. Keep the show going.
What do you guys think of? I saw the idea. I mean, people discussing for the new 12-team format. You get the home and homes for the first rounds as an incentive.
Oh, here it was 2005 Fiesta Bowl, Utah and Pittsburgh. Yep.
Okay. Well, what do you guys think of the New Year's Six becoming the quarter and semifinals, where they rotate the 6 games for those 2 rounds of the playoff?
I like it. I'm good with it.
Instead of the home games, essentially.
I'd rather the home games, but it is what it is.
I don't think you're going to see this 12-team playoff around very long. I really don't.
They'll bloat it to 16, you think?
I don't like the 12-team for a couple reasons. The biggest reason is home field advantage is a good incentive, but the bye. Think about this. You got a bye, so you don't have to worry about any player getting hurt. You get a scout more. And what happens when you have to play the first week and with a minute left in the game, your defensive back does something stupid and gets a targeting, and now you're out the first half of the next game?
Well, you're going to have a weird situation, even if it's 8 or 16, because in theory, you're going to have teams that did not play in their conference championships that are at large. So they're essentially going to have a bye not playing in their championship games before. The reason that I don't love the 12-team playoff for all the same reasons you're talking about, it only made sense to me where if you play the first 2 rounds at home sites, because of the way it's structured, you will know the location of every game before the playoff even starts. So fans can schedule travel. You don't have to guess and move things around. You could see some really cool home atmospheres with away sections. But if they're doing this whole, big neutral site, huge stadium games, go to 8 or 16, make it even, remove the bye element. You can't really even out the conference championship in full. That part just is what it is. So, if we're not going to do the home sites, just go even across the board.
See, they're only going to do the home sites in the first round.
Yeah. So no, forget it.
We do need home playoffs. I will say that. College football is the only besides college basketball, but that's a whole different story. But it's the only sport like that doesn't have home playoffs. It needs to have home playoffs for sure. Before we get out of here to our last word, we just hit 2 hours, guys. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it, but we did. But before we get to the last words for everybody, quick thing. So Pitt, I thought they were 0-1 because they lost to Michigan State last year, but they're actually 0-2 in BCS Bowls because they lost to Utah. West Virginia is 3-0 in BCS Bowls. They beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. They beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. And they beat Clemson in the Orange Bowl. So I just wanted to slide a gentle reminder to Pitt fans that they are 0-2. Of course, they're not BCS Bowls anymore. They're New Year's Six. Back in the day, it was BCS. But bottom line is Pitt 0-2 in BCS / New Year's Six, and West Virginia is 3-0. Those are facts. All right, guys, before we get out of here, last word. First, we will go to Tide Guy. What is your last word of the day, buddy?
I just want to tell everybody out there, if you're not a Patreon member, you're missing out. We get extra content every Sunday. We do a Patreon show. Joey Foster does an excellent job with that. So not only do you get that, but you also get to save some money on merchandise. And every week, Golden Blue Dude does a pick'em game, and you can win $20. And I think he's less than $70 away to go to $50. So
Yes.
if we can get just a few more people in there, we'll start, getting $50.
When we hit $300 worth of pledges, I'm going to bump it from $20 a week to $50 a week. Right now, we are at $236 worth of pledges, so we're about 64, something like that, $64 away. It's not that much. So, could you imagine that $50 prize a week? That's a good prize. That is a good prize right there.
If you pay $5 a month for Patreon and you win a $50, that means you're only paying $10 a year for your membership.
Yes, and you can win as many times as you want. It's not like you win one time and then, no, you're disqualified for the rest. No, if you're good at pick'ems, you could win some serious money. I know in week 1 it was Daniel Brayson, and then week 2 was Charlie Wood. Week 3, I'll have the results for that tomorrow. But it was between BYU and Oregon. So I'm going to check the scores and see who came the close. John Waffle, HTB, thank you for the $4.99 donation, says it should be stated Pitt is 4-1 against the Puppies.
I'm assuming he's talking about me. It's been a while since we've played
Washington.
Pitt,
okay. Since you're on, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
It's been a while, though. I can't remember the last time we played Pitt. It's been a minute.
I think we should have a rule.
Do you remember what Pitt?
If you're not alive when it happened, did it happen? I mean, come on. Yeah. I mean, like I just threw out that Texas has not beat Vanderbilt since.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia being 3-0 in BCS / New Year's Six, and Pitt being 0-2 is still relevant because all that's happened in the last 20 years.
Yeah. We have won a Rose Bowl in my lifetime. We beat Drew Brees and Purdue in the Rose Bowl.
Did the national championship come before?
1991.
Was that during your lifetime?
I hate to age myself, but no, it was not.
Nice. No, that's good. That's good. That means you can claim it.
Yeah. I'm not clinging to the past too much. Like I said, I kind of started watching late 90s as a kid, getting into it, but unfortunately that was post Don James and more Tyrone Willingham, which was not fun.
And I understand that Golden Blue Dude should be expecting some Washington gear here real soon.
I'll be curious if you can guess the other team. They are an FCS team, and my mom's side of the family is from Washington State. My dad's side is from another Western state.
Okay.
Where this team is from. They're the FCS team I support. I'll give you 3 guesses real quick.
Okay, so one hit. Are they a good FCS?
They have had very good teams, yes. They do make the FCS playoffs quite often.
My first guess is going to be Montana.
You are right on the money, sir. Go Grizz.
Yeah, there you go. And Montana actually has one of the best stadiums in FCS.
It's beautiful. I just drove through there to go visit family a few weeks ago, and it's amazing. I've never been for a game though. I need to.
Yeah,
Sergeant Pickles, you're going to have to watch Golden Blue Dude's show. I think Friday. He already knows because I sent him a picture. I found a Navy mini helmet.
There you go.
With the Marine Corps logo.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
Let's go.
Yeah,
so,
it's beautiful.
You'll be proud. But hey, Golden Blue Dude, great show. Thanks for having me on. Always appreciate it.
Y'all go check out Tide Guy on YouTube. He does his own YouTube channel as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Have a great night, guys.
Semper Fi,
You
Jeff.
too, buddy. Sergeant Pickles, man, floor is your last word of the day.
Oh, I've spouted enough nonsense for one night. I did have an idea that I thought you could do, or Jeff, or whoever. I would love to see at the end of the weekend someone take a look at what the 12-team playoff would be that week, what the hypothetical matchups would be that week.
Honestly, that's really good, and that would give me a solid, for sure, video idea once a week.
Yeah, I'm here to provide you content, man. But I would love to see the breakdowns, because obviously the AP poll what it is, but you could do the version with the AP poll and then the version with the Golden Blue Dude poll and see what the matchups looks like. So I thought that'd be a good time. I'm glad, my Huskies got the good win. It's going to be a fun season, and go Dogs.
Nice job, buddy. Thank you. Great show, guys. Appreciate everybody that stopped by and watched the show. Hit the like button, and if you haven't, hit the like button on the way out. Even though it won't be live, it still helps hit the YouTube algorithm and gets to suggest more, and people click on it, more views. So it still helps the video even though we're not live. So thank you to everybody that commented. Jake Allison, thank you for the $1.99 donation. Says Oklahoma State has a pretty nice bowl record. Go Pokes. I agree with that. Mike Gundy has been there a very long time, and even though he hasn't, gotten to the playoffs or won that championship, Oklahoma State has been very successful under Mike Gundy. Probably one of the most successful stretches Oklahoma State football has ever had. So I second that. Very good. So that's it for tonight. I don't know what time I'm going to go live tomorrow, so that's why I encourage y'all to have the notification bell rung. That way you get alerted when I go live, because life still happens. I have a life outside of YouTube, so I try to fit these live shows whenever I can. Sometimes it's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes it's later like this, so I don't know. And if you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. This is what we do here every day. College football videos, regular pre-recorded, uploaded videos, and then live shows every day on the weekdays. And then Saturday, it's pretty much an all-day thing. If college football, if it has something to do with college football, I have you covered. So there you go, guys. Everybody that hit the super chat, appreciate you. And to everybody that joined through StreamYard, Sergeant Pickles, Will Klein, and Jeff Grimm, I appreciate you. There would be no Golden Blue Dude without people like you watching the show and people like them participating. So y'all have a good night. We'll see you sometime tomorrow. I just don't know when.